Hey guys, so I'm back again today on Ryuuza, and I did a really fun game of Warsong Gulch that I want to share with you, but I also got a request for a video about my keybinds and how I set up my action bars, so I'm going to talk about that as well. So looking first at my setup, I play on a laptop. It's an Alienware MX11, which is a Dell. It's got a pretty standard keyboard. There are no special keys. It is built for gaming, but there are no special keys on the keyboard, so pretty standard keyboard. My mouse, however, is a Ryuuza Naga, which, as you guys know, has 12 buttons on the side, plus 2 extra mouse buttons here. And I have to say, this is absolutely integral to my gameplay. If I didn't have this mouse at this point, I probably wouldn't be able to play. Before I had this mouse, I was a clicker and a bad one at that. So this mouse has been the key thing that has helped me improve my gameplay, particularly in PvP. So if you guys don't have a Ryuuza Naga or a similar mouse, this video probably won't be too applicable to you. I'll go ahead and put in a link for a video that Hengest did a while ago. If you guys don't know Hengest, he's a fabulous PvP feral druid, although he doesn't play as much as he used to. And when I was first learning, his videos were the ones that helped me the most, and I watched him all the time. So he's still a good commentator. He has a little bit of an ego, but definitely check out his video on his keybinds, which I'll put a link to. And in the meantime, let me show you mine. So for Ryuuza, because she is a lower level toon, you'll notice on my keyboard, or on my action bars here, that I have a lot of blank spaces. There are key bindings there, but the abilities are not there, and that's just because I haven't acquired them yet. I have several druids, as you guys know, so I keep all of my key bindings the same across all of those toons, and that's just really important for muscle memory. So when you're developing or sort of figuring out how you want to bind your keys, however you decide to do it, make sure that it's comfortable and you think it's going to work, because you don't want to be changing too much later on, because it takes some relearning, and you'll be surprised how it trips you up if you change things around suddenly and your fingers don't know where to go, because a lot of PvP is just really being quick on the draw, being quick on your feet, and if you don't have that muscle memory to back you up, you're not going to be able to succeed. So just something to keep in mind. Now, my action bars are pretty crazy messy. Just over time, I've changed things around, and because I have so many keybinds and I wasn't clicking anymore, things kind of just put in sort of a random order. There's not a whole lot of method to the madness here. They're just kind of wherever I found space, and wherever I felt like I wanted to put those abilities and keybind them. So there's not a lot of order to my action bars. Some things are kind of in particular places, and those are just kind of leftovers from when I was a clicker. Like down here, a lot of my defensive cooldowns are down here, something like Tiger's Fury, because I needed to click them, and then down here on my main action bar, that tends to be where a lot of my primary attacks are. And that's just because that's leftover. It actually does not matter where you want to put your keys and keybind them, because if they're bound, you're not looking at them and clicking on them anyway. So just something to keep in mind. Now, in terms of where these are physically, when I'm actually playing, like on my mouse and on my keyboard, that is a little bit more important. So my number one key on my mouse, my Ryuuza Naga, is going to be my spamming ability. That's an ability I want to be able to do over and over again, and is probably going to be part of my opener. So you want to have, in the first couple of rows, I would say, some of your basic opening attacks to your primary attacks, because you want them easy to reach. You don't want to have to kind of scoot your thumb down to the second and fourth, or the third and fourth rows too often. So that's something to keep in mind. Whatever abilities are spamming abilities, primary attack abilities, those are the ones you want to have on your mouse, and you want to order them in such a way that it makes sense to how you operate when you're actually in combat. So if you think about where the buttons are on the mouse, for the second row, 4 and 5, I have stealth and pounce. Right down here, those are 4 and 5 on my mouse. So I'm usually in stealth, but it's not something I'm spamming, so it can be slightly back from the rest of my abilities. And pounce is something that needs to be, I need to know exactly where it is and I need to not misclick it. So it's 5, which is right smack in the middle. So whenever I'm opening, like I said, standard opener is charge and pounce. So charge is number 2, which is right next to my number 1 key. So you just kind of learn where to put those so that you know how it feels to open in your fingers when you're pressing those keys. So think about that when you decide where you want to put stuff. In terms of of mouse versus keyboard in my case. I have all of my primary attacks, things that don't have long cooldowns, things that I use frequently, things that I need to be able to do on command and frequently, those are on my mouse. So Mangle, Ravage, Charge, Pounce, all those things are on my mouse. Skull Bash 2 is also on my mouse. Because it's something that I'm going to be doing, I need to do it quick and I may need to do it often. Some of my more defensive cooldowns or offensive cooldowns as well, I have on my keyboard. My heals are also on my keyboard. So I kind of separate how I keybind in that way. I have active attacking abilities for the most part on my mouse, and then cooldown abilities or abilities I'm not always using on my keyboard. And that leaves me free to use my keyboard for A, D, and W, and then use my mouse. I do use my mouse to steer, but also have most of my mouse abilities, the attack abilities, that I need to press often. So I do backpedal. You'll see me backpedal. And I do use W for forward, and then A and D are rebound for strafe. So I no longer have the turn, right turn, left turn on my keyboard. That's only with the mouse. And I think that's pretty important to learning how to be fast, learning how to keep on top of your enemies. You really need to have the turning just taken off and only use your mouse for sharp turns like that. Strafe is important though, because I find I frequently need to kind of go alongside my enemies or come up behind them. I'm faster than they are usually, so I need to be able to strafe to make sure that I'm not outrunning them when I'm, spamming shred or whatever. So I think it's real important to have strafe, A, W, and D, just kind of keep them as they are. I have never found it helpful to unbind them and bind them to other abilities, because I've been playing with A, W, and D for so long, and it's such a basic function. If I unbind them, I'll never be able to get it right. So unless you feel like you really don't have need of those and you're absolutely efficient with your mouse, I would keep those bound as they are. Q, E, R, V, Z, and then F1 through 4, F1 through 5 actually, are, like I said, cooldown abilities or heals. My heals are Q, E, Shift Q, Shift E. My cyclones and hibernates are going to be R, V, and T. I have roots on Z. And then some, like I said, my defensive cooldowns and some offensive cooldowns I have on the F keys. Usually on F1 I have some kind of potion. At later levels, potions kind of become ineffective, but at lower levels they're an extremely good source of healing. Barkskin and Nature's Grass will be F2 and F3 later on. I have Fairy Fire, both forms on F4, so I can use it outside of the macro for my Pounce. I have Tyler's Fury here. F right now is my Talisman of Rather. Later on, that'll be my Berserk. F3 is going to be, number 3 will be Maim, things like that. And then C, Survival Instincts, and what have you. So that brings me to another point. No matter what form you're in, I would try to keep your primary abilities, particularly on your mouse, similar. So I have a spamming ability on 1. Mangle's not as spammable at this level, but later on I'll have Lacerate there. I keep Charge, same as I do in cat form on number 2. 4, which is usually my Stealth, is another cooldown's Demoralizing Roar. Bash, which I think is the equivalent in cat form as Pounce, I keep that on number 5. And so on and so forth. Skull Bash, Swipe are in the same spot. So if it's helpful for you, it certainly has been for me. Try to keep similar abilities in cat and bear form in similar spots. That'll help you remember how your opener feels in your fingers when you're actually playing. So that's my advice on that. Now in the Warsong Gulch, I'm going to show you next. This was a pretty good match, I thought. It was not sort of a face roll like some of the other ones I've shown you have been. It actually took a little bit of team coordination. And one thing in particular I want to point out is after I take the first flag, we get a heavy hit of offense from the enemy team, and both of my healers die. So I'm left up there at falling health with a couple players who I know are going to kill me if I don't get out of there. Now, there aren't very many places you can run. You don't want to be running too far from your base. you want to be running for your healers, for other players in your team to help you out. Now normally I don't like to leave the flag capping point, because at any time the enemy flag carrier could go down and you want to be ready to cap. But in this case, my best option was to run to our own graveyard, because I knew my healers were going to respawn there, and several other players who had died would be there to back me up as well. So that was a really good choice, and depending on the situation, that's always an option, and I highly recommend it if you're the flag carrier to don't be afraid to run for the graveyard, don't be afraid to run for your healers. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and show you the Warsong Gulch with some fabulous dubstep in the background as always. And if you guys have comments or feedback, feel free to leave those in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.